I just graduated from college, and a friend of mine called me one day, and she was like, hey, there's this show, they're going to do this show, Rent, which I knew Rent because of the movie, but I didn't really know the Broadway show, right? And she was like, yeah, they're going to do Rent, and there's like it's a Broadway company, they're going to come and like set up the show and blah, 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 and you should audition for it.
Zeus, tell me about Claudia.
Oh my God, Claudia? You're gonna fall in love with Claudia. First of all, she's so talented. She's a Cuban actress, but now she's Cuban American, and she's actually been on Broadway. She's only been here a couple years, and she's already been on Broadway, and she's been in a documentary film. Awesome! Oh, sorry. Awesome. We're awesome.
All right, we're rolling, guys.
Okay, so you were an actress in Cuba, so tell me about that and tell me how you found Rent.
I just graduated from college, and a friend of mine called me one day, and she was like, hey, there's this show, they're gonna do this show, Rent, which I knew Rent because of the movie, but I didn't really know the Broadway show, right? And she was like, yeah, they're gonna do Rent, and there's like it's a Broadway company, they're gonna come and like set up the show and blah, 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 and you should audition for it.
Was it the first time there was a Broadway show in Cuba?
First time in over 50 years, because before the revolution, there was, attempts of like musical theaters happening, but not after. Like not really musical shows, like shows that involve music and little Cuban attempts to what a musical is, but not with the Broadway standards, for sure. So this was the first time that actually a Broadway team came to Cuba with the Broadway standards, with the audition process and all the rehearsal and what a musical means with the Broadway standards in a country like Cuba, which is also, it's a third, economically doesn't have the approach that my Broadway might have.
But Cuba is known for the arts.
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was insane because, just from the audition process, I knew it was going to be different. When people hear Broadway, Americans are coming to Cuba, they think automatically that money is going to be involved in it. So the Nederlanders, which were the producers for the show, did it the right way. So they came through all the things. They came through the government to do the right thing, and like they did it as the book calls, which means that the artists in Cuba, they're already now well paid. And then it involved being paid as whatever theater company that we have there, which is barely like nothing. So a lot of people were like, oh no, I'm not gonna do this. Like if I'm not getting paid what I think I should be getting paid because it's Broadway, right? I'm not gonna do it. And my mom was like, are you sure you're gonna do this? Like, it seems like it's a lot of work. It was like so many rehearsals, and the process was long because they didn't just set up a show. They had to train us first in what Broadway is and make us understand how you put these things together, because it's not just acting. It's acting, but your wording has to be different.
So how was it different from the way you were trained?
The way you move. Like there's a musicality on your steps. There is a timing on a move. Like everything is on cue. Everything is on music. You're not just speaking. Your words means that the way you're saying this phrase, which is like for the way that we were trained as an actress, you learn a script, but especially in Cuba, you have a lot of ad-libs. Like you learn the show, but then you break it down and you make it your own and you do your thing. And every night you react to an audience that make you kind of like change what like your preset is. So you kind of go, it's like that, se alimenta.
It almost has an improv element to it.
Yes. Broadway doesn't have that. You can't just improv. You have to come, and every night is the same show. Every night is the same timing, the same movement, the same cue to look, the same blink, basically. Like, it's just like very, very, because everything is part of a machinery that has to work together in order for the show to, to be what it is, which is an amazing Broadway show, which is Rent.
So this whole process you're talking about was
totally new.
And it was documented. It was documented in a film called Revolution Rent, which is actually coming to HBO. So the curious part, the interesting, super interesting part is that I wanted to interview you because I knew Broadway was coming back in a couple months. And then Ken was like, oh, I'd like to do something on Revolution Rent because it's about Cuba and HBO picked it up. And I was like, oh, remember Claudia, my friend? She was actually in the documentary. So let's talk to her about that too. Yeah. So how has this whole process, I mean, this is the question that everybody's wondering, right? Like, how did this change your life? I mean, 5 years ago, you were living in Cuba, you didn't know about what it was like to be on Broadway. And now you've actually been on Broadway. So fast forward to us, and this will answer how has it changed your life. So tell us about your career here in New York City.
Yeah, so because of Rent, I met, Andy Senor, which is the director.
And he was one of the original characters in the Broadway show.
In the Broadway show. He played Angel, actually, in the London production, and then I came for visit, and Andy was the one who actually told me one day, he was like, because I never considered, in my mind, you've been in Cuba, you know how it is. Like, you kind of like have, how do I say this? You have an idea of what your life could be, and you kind of work towards it. But in that moment, I didn't realize, like, I never put a limit or a date on, like, oh, I could go to do this thing outside of Cuba. Like, in my mind, I was like, I was fine there. Like, I just graduated from college. I was doing, like, in that moment, it's like historically talking, and we'll see it in the documentary. It's like Obama just opened up the connections with Cuba, and there's like this big ball of opportunities that are supposed to come, like right on the door, and you're like, wow, finally, Cuba is gonna be in the picture. Cuba is gonna start, like, people are gonna start coming in and do the thing, and da. Flash forward to today, let's say, nothing happened. Things are still the same. Things, if for not saying maybe worse, because I haven't, really lived there for the last couple of years, but I came and I was sitting down on a dinner with Andy, and he was like, wait, so what are you gonna do? And I didn't have an answer. I was like, well, I don't know. He was like, well, I think you should think about it, because there is this show, which is On Your Feet, that I think you would be perfect for it. They're actually gonna audition, and you should audition for it.
On Your Feet is, of course, based on Gloria Estefan's life.
Is the show of Familia Gloria Estefan, which at that time was already on Broadway.
And let me ask you this is a silly question, but growing up here, Cuban American, Gloria Estefan is like the godmother, the everybody knows her and loves her so much. Did you know her growing up in Cuba?
Of course you know who she was. Like, I knew who she was. But in Cuba, she was not, like, they never played her in the radio, let's say, because, her position towards Cuba many years ago, especially, like, was kind of like, it was kind of como rayando with Cuba. Like, they were like, no, politically, she's not right for Cuba, let's say, because she was, vocal over what for her represented Cuba, of course. And like some of her songs, like Cuba Libre, and some of them, they were like, these are not allowed to be playing on the radio. So she was cut from the root. So for me, she was such a star. Of course, I knew who, like, Mi Tierra and like all of those songs were, but it's not something as present, I think, as for the Cuban community in Miami was, for my generation at least. So of course, coming back here and actually studying her story and like learning her like the amazing music she had for so many years, and me being in Cuba and knowing the reference of her music and how they open up a whole new world for all the Cuban community, basically in Miami, like a Cuban girl jumping towards being a star in the world, not just in Cuba, not just in Miami. She broke all the barriers, and like in the entire world, Japan, here, and then me, in this case, me coming from Cuba, doing this thing, and then being actually in the same room as Gloria Estefan many times and talking to her. It's just mind-blowing. It's just, your life just takes a totally different turn.
Yeah, she's an incredible inspiration. Her story on so many different levels.
Yeah.
Even her personal triumph through everything that she's been through. So So were you like, yes, I'm trying out? Or were you intimidated? Were you like confident? Like, tell me, how did it feel to do that, to throw your hat in the ring?
It's definitely very intimidating because I don't think anybody in the world would say that it's an easy process to just leave your country, leave your family, and leave everything behind, which in my case it was not as hard as probably what your family experienced many years ago, because I didn't have to break completely Cuba. I was able to go back, like my mom is still in Cuba, and I go back to there, and I have friends and I have family, and I'm still able to visit, and which I feel like for so many people was so hard because you were not allowed to go back, which is insane.
Yes, that is crazy. You know what it was weird for me growing up. My abuelos raised me, so I was so Cuban. Mm-hmm. I felt so Cuban. I told everybody I was Cuban my whole entire life, and I had never stepped foot in Cuba. Mm-hmm. But I had the culture, the language, the mannerisms, everything was part of me. Mm-hmm. So it's I think that's a very common thing for many people of different backgrounds that are first generation that are born here, mm-hmm. but they have such a heavy influence from their family.
For me, when Andy set up that, she's just throw it out there being like, but you just have to think about it.
So you went for it.
I remember at the moment I was like, because it was Andy and it was also my dad, was like, what are you doing? You're wasting your time over there. Like you should, like you graduated, and like you should be doing this thing because you have all the possibilities to be. You have the English, you have the, the language and everything.
So what would have been a job that he would have wanted for you?
I don't know, whatever. He was just wanted me to come here, but he kind of like pushed for it in a way, and having those two things thrown at me. In the moment, I was like, wait a second, it's a lot to think about right now. Like my mom, like. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna just leave my house, my apartment, And then I went back to Cuba. And it's so crazy, but it's one of those things when, the world just puts all the signs in your face. Like I went back and it's just everything was yelling at me, being like, get out. Vete de aquí. Like I reached a point that I was like, I gotta go. Something so simple as like getting a plumber for my apartment would become a whole headache and just insane. The theater, like I went back and I went back to my original theater group that I used to work, and then the play that they were playing in the moment I didn't like, and I went to like full depression because I went to a phase that I was like, I don't even want to act anymore.
Why?
I don't know. I was just so sad of.
What was the conflict inside? To stay or to go?
It's stay or to go, and also it's like that thing of like, well, maybe it's that feeling of like you already reached a roof. Like Cuba has this thing of, it could be such a wonderful country, has all the possibilities to be. And it is a wonderful country. It's just like the situations, the conditions are not appropriate. So you kind of feel like you reach a roof. Like you have a roof over your head all the time that is like stopping you, pushing you down. And it's that feeling that you have inside. It's like that fire of like, at least you should try it. And that's what made me come. Because I was like, you know what? Anything can happen. Maybe I'm at 50 years old being a housewife and somewhere in the world being like, you know what? I tried it. Didn't work out. I didn't make it to Broadway. I didn't do any of those things, but at least I tried and I'm good about it. I want to be the person that says I tried. I don't want to be the person that's sitting and then is 50 years old and it's like the person that says I could have done. I'm not that person, so I just went for it. And I came, and of course nothing was sure. Like Andy was like, you should audition for this show, but I never thought I would get it. Like I had to work for it. You had to study, you had to like take dancing lessons, and you have to like, because Broadway is not an easy thing to do. And when I auditioned for the show and I started getting callbacks and eventually I got the show, can you imagine? For me, Cubanita, venida de la nada, de momento caer in a national tour for 2 years and a half, playing like doing a Gloria Estefan show. Like every night I got the chance to play.
Do you still pinch yourself, or are you still like, is this my life?
Exacto. No, I still do it. Like sometimes I'm walking here in New York and like looking around and I'm like, I live in New York City.
I know. Yeah.
Especially when I talk with friends of mine. It's so sad because sometimes
Pero eres una inspiración. Like you probably inspire so many of them, no matter what their dream is, to just, because what you're telling me is you tried. It's not that they have to become actors and move to New York and make it on Broadway, but you push past your fear to actually try it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
No matter what subject you're talking about.
And it's scary.
Okay, so on your feet, don't be scared.
I know, no. I'm think about it like back. It's because, the documentary is coming out in June 15 on HBO, and I've seen it so many times. And looking back at it, like looking where in life I was before, looking at myself, that Claudia back there, and then seeing, the growth that I've reached, like so many places I've been and so many people that I've got the opportunity to meet, and how that makes you open up your mind in a way, like you open your horizons. And it's what you say, you have to give yourself the chance to stumble. Like sometimes it's not, a veces no es tierra segura, sometimes it's scary, and you go through it, you go through the fears, and the fears are never going to be over. You don't realize how much you've accomplished. And I'm saying this from the humblest of the humblest, until you are like sitting next to someone or playing for somewhere or performing at and that's what this documentary always reminds me, that it's like the slap on the face to be like, never believe you rich, like you made it, don't ever think you already made it. Don't ever sit on like, oh, I did this show, I did this thing, because when you reach that point, the only way you can go is down again. It's like a roller coaster, right? So it's like seeing the documentary and talking about this and like, the way we met and everything. It's like one of those reminders of like, you have to be thankful every day for the things you've done and the people you accumulate, because it's that's what makes you, that's really what the people you collect is really what makes you go in the path that you want.
Okay, ¿qué quieres hacer próximo? Like I feel like Rent, and then being in the documentary and that whole experience, because you said yes to even trying out, completely changed your life, and opened it up in this expansive way. So what are you dreaming of next?
I just don't want to wait for people to book me, let's say. It's like kind of like you put yourself in perspective of...
She's not waiting for anyone.
No, it's just like...
You're creating your own space, and of course they'll call you because of that, probably.
It's I'm working now in a show, in a solo show, where my art, my paintings, kind of like connect with as an actress, where I stand right now, and I'm working with, actually talking about fear, I'm working on a show that's about the phobias that we hold, because
how perfect for all the phobias we created during COVID.
Yeah, I have this. It's called trypophobia. I don't know if you heard about it. Trypophobia.
Like 3 phobias, or phobia of like eating tripe?
It's that would be hilarious though.
Well, you're vegan now, so I thought maybe that's like a phobia you have.
No, it's a phobia of patterns. So when you have like a skin rash, just thinking about it, I'm like, you know what, like the bubbles that you create, it's like one next to the other one, and then it's like the pattern, that kind of things. I repel it so much that I'm working on a series now, which is like a solo show of like how it's ¿cómo se dice when it's immersive,
Uh-huh.
so the audience can go and actually experience their phobias. And it's like every piece is going to be completely different, but it's going to be interactive with the audience.
And is this a way to get over your phobias? Or to
Maybe, who
understand them?
knows?
So it's up to the...
Is the idea is that people, like, it's going to be like different how to say, como bases,
Yeah, so
different art pieces
Yes.
that are also I don't know how to say it, like
Dilo en español.
como una base, como una.
Sí, que puedes entrar en varias.
Exacto.
Y tú escoges tu camino.
And then you can be like, oh, I have this phobia, blah, 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 and then this art piece, which is like, you know, immersive, you can actually go in and experience something that it might help you, but definitely just the idea of facing it, you know, like just breaking, and maybe you don't get over it, but just the idea of being like, I can do this, and then go in and face your phobia. And I'm working about it as myself. I'm working on my trypophobia with this. I'm creating a piece that is disgusting in my brain, you know. It's
that
like,
sounds super interesting. What do you want people to know about Revolution Rent?
well, it's amazing. It's an amazing. I feel like one of the so Revolution Rent is a show that not just talk about the show per se in the process of putting rent in Cuba. It's also Andy's journey. Andy is also Cuban American, and his family also came, you know, in the 50s, and he went through your what you were describing before, which is like his process of identity in a way, but also how he connected in a way with Cuban, with all of us, that I don't think he never expected to do that. So it's more than just a show, more than just someone connecting with his identity. It's a message of love and openness. Like, I feel like if people understand that the barriers in general are so horrible. If we break all those barriers or those thoughts of like things that can happen or can't, if we get rid of all of that, in general, I feel like the world will be a better place. And I feel Rent, it might be a really good encouragement for people to open up a little more. It's a really good documentary.